If you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you could probably tell that I'm a type A or type A plus personality who is extremely detailed and unlikely to be late. I take things relatively seriously. Now, my brothers are all very different from me. Not to say that, I'm more likely to be on time and others aren't, but certain personalities predispose themselves to a propensity to being on time or early, while others are less likely to be so. And while I was in college, I carpooled with one brother who will remain nameless for this story. So my brother was a little bit more laid back and less likely to be on time. We, however, carpooled together because he didn't want to drive to campus on his own. We were both living from home in order to save on room and board. That was a good arrangement. Now, I had a car, and I was driving us back and forth. He went through a few seasons where he didn't have a car. He had a Volkswagen Beetle once that ended up in an accident and wasn't drivable for a while. Anyway, he needed rides to school, and the biggest problem started to grow out of my class schedule. I did get to pick which classes I went to, but there were certain classes that I didn't have a choice in, one of which was an architectural history class, and that was like a 7 or 7:30 a.m. class. So I had to get up around 6, get ready, leave before 7 a.m. in order to make it to class on time. And the particular teacher who ran this class would lock the door the minute class was supposed to start. If you were not on time or early, you didn't get to participate in class. You didn't get to listen to lecture. You didn't get to find out what was going to be the subject matter for the next test. So it was very important to me to be on time for this early morning class. However, for my brother, it was not as important. He didn't have a class that early in the day, but he still needed a ride. And he had a harder time getting motivated to get up in the morning and get to the car in time for me to make it to class. It became a recurring theme, and even though I said that I was going to drive him to school, we were going to carpool and we were going to split the cost of gas, well, that arrangement was putting me at risk for not making it to class on time. I remember going out to the car, being ready. I remember waking him up and saying, hey, we got to go, we got to make sure that we go. And it would be time to go. Then it would be 5 minutes past time to go, then 10 minutes past time to go. And if I didn't leave at that point, I wasn't going to make it to class at all. So here I have a decision to make. Do I leave and make it to class, or do I skip class and try to maintain a softer relationship with my brother? I concluded that I was the one who was doing him a favor by being the driver and using my car. So I made a request that I will drive you to school, but you have to conform to my schedule and you can't make me late. If you are not in the car ready to go by a certain time, I'm simply going to leave without you, and you won't have a ride from me that morning. I ended up putting more into the agreement. I wrote about 3 pages of expectations as to what was or wasn't allowed in the car, like were you allowed to bring food into the car if you were running late and you wanted to eat breakfast. And I liked keeping a clean car, so I didn't want breakfast eaten in the car. And I didn't want him taking my car off campus if he needed the car throughout the middle of the day and it was going to interrupt my access to it. I may have been a little bit strict here, but I thought it was important to establish well-articulated boundaries so that the agreement could be understood and there would be evidence of what the agreement was. So now if I ever had to leave him behind, I could say, well, I wrote down that if you're not here by this time, I'm going to leave without you so that way I'm not late for class. And that was the deal. If you don't abide by your part of the deal and you don't make it to the car on time, then I don't owe you a ride that day. And you're going to have to figure out another way to get to class. Now, this was really challenging. My brother tested the limits of this agreement by basically not making it to the car a few times. And as a result, I left him behind more than once. But by making sure that I stuck to my boundaries and stuck to my word, he ended up learning to get up and be ready on time and take that agreement seriously, take my schedule seriously, and respect the boundaries that we had. Ultimately, in the end, I think I have a better relationship with my brother because we had these boundaries. I didn't ever hold it against him later that he would make me late to class because I had an out in that front. And he never held it against me for leaving early because I had written down that I would if he wasn't ready on time. I want you to remember this lesson when we get to the main topic.